Amazing Kisses are back. I have been wanting for K-dramas and pretty much every drama that I'm watching to bring back the passionate adult kissing. Goddamn. And we got that in Lovely Runner. I am going to be going into some spoilers for episode 8 of Lovely Runner and just talking about my general thoughts about the show. And how Byeon Woo-seok is just, wow, what a backbending kiss. Anyways, let me get into it. Hi, I'm Monique. I am the host of Off by Purple Heart podcast, where I talk to you about K-dramas, C-dramas, BTS, and so much more. I'm going to talk to you some more about Lovely Runner. I definitely watched a lot more episodes since my first impressions that I aired last week. And I was basically saying in that podcast that I'm not really feeling a lot of K-dramas right now, and that I kind of wanted to check this show out, but I was a little hesitant because there was heavy subject matter, and also a very popular K-drama that just recently finished was Queen of Tears as well, which there's a lot of rave reviews about that, but I also hear that it had a lot of heavy subject matter, and I was kind of scared to get into it. So I picked one of the two, and I decided to go in with Lovely Runner. Talked all about episode 1 and all the heavy themes that were in the show, and I was kind of hemming and hawing whether I would continue, and then I finally decided, yeah, I'm going to continue watching the show because I actually really do like the actor Byeon Woo-seok. I just think he's gorgeous. I like looking at him, and he actually does have the acting chops, and I feel like his acting partner Kim Hye-yoon, she's doing a lovely job as well in this show, and she packed in quite a bit of emotional punch in the first episode. But there's definitely a lot of time travel that is invested in this show, and I didn't realize that with the time traveling element that she would be altering the timelines quite a bit. So episode 2 to episode 7, she jumps back into the past 2 more times. So in total 3 times I believe she's dipped into the past. And Soul, the lead character, and Sun Jae. I refer to him as Sun in this drama, the character Byeon Woo-seok plays, because I think Sun and Soul, I think those two names are just such gorgeous symmetry, but his actual name is Sun Jae in the show, and Im Sol is the main lead female character. Soul jumps back into the past multiple times, and she's given a chance that she can technically alter the events of the future, but she cannot talk to anyone specifically about the future. So anytime she actually writes down a piece of history, or she writes down something that happens in present day, because the timeline is back 14 years, and then present day in the show is 2023. And as she talks about like Obama having run as the US president for 8 years or anything like that, she cannot convey that messaging. So she cannot directly tell anybody, and she cannot directly tell Sun Jae her actual fears and what she's trying to prevent. But she can, in smart ways, alter the timeline and hope for a better outcome, which is that she's trying to save Sun Jae or Sun's life. And I thought that was interesting to play with. The show definitely kind of alleviates some of the heaviness in episodes 2 to episode 7. There's a lot of comedic moments, and I actually think both Byeon Woo-seok and Kim Hye-yoon have done a great job in bringing a lot of levity and light into the show. I like them as a pairing. I think they look fantastic together, and I think Kim Hye-yoon is doing a really good job of playing Soul as a character that can be really slapstick and funny, but she also carries a lot of depth, and the emotional moments of the show are really, really gripping. And I have to give Byeon Woo-seok a lot of credit as well. Like, I'm not gonna lie and pretend like I didn't come into the show for the visuals aspect, because I think he is a good looking actor. I don't know much about his personality, but I do know that he is gorgeous, and I liked looking at him when I was watching Strong Girl Namsoon. And I really did not like that K-drama. I despised that K-drama actually. But I always thought he was such an interesting factor, not just the good looks, but how good he was playing the villain, to the point that I actively was shipping him with the female lead in that show, because that would have made things infinitely more interesting than what we got. So I really liked Byeon Woo-seok, but he's doing a lot of great work here. And when the show switches to his POV in particular, it's so much more heartbreaking. Like, he really sells the sadness and the loneliness, and he plays a simp really well. I know that's not a word that everyone likes, but I don't know how else to say it. He's such a simp for Soul, but in a really funny way. Like, he's a super loser in his love for her. And I love that once we got his POV in like episodes 2 to 7, we saw that what we were reading as really cold interactions between him and the female lead, he actually was secretly burning up inside, and that tension carried itself really well. I think also the introduction of the high school crush that Im-sol had prior to jumping back into the past and realizing that she had this connection to Sunjae, and then this, high school crush that she has. I don't remember the character's name. I think the character is Byeon Hook. I think. I am not 100%. No. I think that's mistaken. I think that's one of the bandmates in the show. I don't remember the name of the character that her high school crush is, but you guys, I will put a picture for those that are watching the podcast version, like on YouTube. I'll put the picture up of the high school crush. You'll know who I'm talking about if you're watching the show. I like that he kind of throws a wrench in the plans too in the past. And I love all the goofiness of it. And there's also a lot of tension as well. Not even just like the sexual tension that racketed up like to the stratosphere in episode 8, which I'm going to talk about more in depthly as we continue into the podcast, because episode 8 did a lot. Okay, it did a lot. But not just the romantic sexual tension increasing episode by episode, but also the threat level, because the show does not let up on the fact that even though the main character, Im-sol, she can change the past to help bring back a better future, that threat of him still dying is still there. And we definitely are left on a massive cliffhanger in the 8 episodes that were shown. So you can never truly watch this show at absolute 100% ease. As much as they can lean into the slapstick and the funny and the cute, and the show does cute moments really, really well, there's also that underlying level of unease, because there is like a storyline of a stalker, and the stalker is specifically targeting Im-sol. And it looks like the plan has progressed because she's gone back in the past a couple of times and changed some events around, that now in the current timeline that we're watching in the show, the stalker might be setting his sights on Sun as well, and that will complicate things more. And because the stalker is such a huge component to the storyline in itself, the stalker that Im-sol has is the reason why in the first timeline that we were shown, she ends up with a disability, and she ends up being paralyzed from the waist down, was because of the accident that happened that she was very reluctant to talk about in the beginning of the show, was directly caused by this man who's stalking her. I don't know if the show really dived into what his motivation is outside of just being a man and men being terrifying, or there's actually like a targeted reason. I might have just forgotten like the fine details, which I will admit sometimes I do, but we do know that she has been targeted, and in each timeline whether she goes back to the past, he is still like a prominent figure that is like this cloud that's looming over the head of the storyline. So you can never truly take a breath and just relax, which is interesting to play with because this show does have 16 episodes in total. And I have a feeling that the show will continue to straddle that line and you won't have a lot of ease until after episode 12, because that's typically how it goes. Usually episode 12 and 13, there is like the dark night of the soul, like everything just goes completely sideways, and then episodes 14, 15, 16 is like kind of resolving the conflicts, so to speak. But they've been paced very well. The show, I think, has been pacing itself very well, and there's still a lot that they can play around with leading up to episode 16, because I feel like a lot of K-dramas would have been better in hindsight if they had ended after 12 episodes versus 16. I feel like even though that's like the average structure for K-dramas nowadays, I feel like too many shows, it's just too many episodes. The writers can't stick the landing too much, and it just ends up being a mess, or you just end up getting really bored by the time episode 14 rolls around, which is unfortunate. And that is not just even in K-drama land either, but in K-drama land especially, I think a lot would benefit from going from 16 to 12. Going into episode 8 in particular, which is really going to be spoiler heavy, I have to talk about the kiss. Dear God, Byeon Woo-seok, he did such an amazing job with the yearning and the desire. Like, he can play really cold and detached really easily, but his desire for Seoul and that first meeting in the now altered timeline, and them meeting at that bridge, and now in this timeline, Im Seoul no longer has a disability. She is able-bodied because she didn't end up in that incident with that stalker that caused that major motor vehicle accident. But the time capsule where she asks to meet again 15 years later in their adulthood, that initial meeting, everything about it was just utterly gorgeous. And Byeon Woo-seok especially, like, his eyes are so expressive, and it was just wonderful. And then obviously a lot of comedy ensued as they agreed to spend the night together. In Im Seoul's mind, she wants to prevent a tragic incident from happening. She doesn't want him to take his life, or what she perceives as him taking his life, even though there's probably a lot more to it than we were shown in the first episode. And him taking that as she wants to spend the night doing, you know, bow chicka wow wow kind of stuff. All of that was so funny. But throughout the episode, I love that their chemistry increased and increased and increased, and then finally we got that kiss, and that kiss was so satisfying. I want to see it. I want to see the intensity. I love that even in the behind the scene videos for that kiss being filmed, like, the director is telling Byeon Woo-seok, hey man, stop going to this kiss so intensely, like, you got to cut it back a little bit. And I'm like, no, I want to see the intimacy. I want to see the intimacy across the board. I feel like there's just been this paradigm shift, this cultural shift, that we have to shy away from intimacy, and it's all about being really conservative and laid back and restrained in passion. And I'm like, no. The fun in watching romance stories, whether it be romantic comedies, romantic dramas, whatever the case is, the enjoyment part for me is getting to see that unbridled passion kind of explode. I'm not saying that we need to have like NC scenes like to galore, and I'm not trying to sound like I'm just all about seeing, you know, the most raunchiest of raunchy. I don't judge, I don't care, but I want to see unbridled passion, like the whole fish kissing type stuff, the really stale, like, let's just gently touch lips and then just hold hands and that's the end of it. Like, no, like, I want to see unbridled passion. I want to see that payoff. Like, if you're going to do like shows that center around slow burn where you don't get the payoff right away, like, I want to see that passion. I want to see, you know, the leads have to take a breath. I want to see the gasping. I want to hear, you know, the moaning, whatever. Like, I want the passion there. Like, sell us romance, goddamn. Like, sell us the romance. And it was brought. And it was a back-bending kiss, too. I don't know how tall that man is. I think he is, like, he looks like he's, like, 7'3". And the actress is, like, so short. Like, his entire body was, like, having to fold in half for that kiss. But it was wonderful. And that's what I want to see. I want to see that passion so much. Another thing about episode 8 too that stuck out to me is that we actually got a future glimpse of the crush, but it was very blink and you miss it. So I wonder if we're gonna play around with that more. I watched episode 8, but I didn't get any previews. So if any previews have been released, that would be interesting, but I didn't get to see anything. So I'm wondering what they're gonna do with the high school crush in the future timeline, because I have a feeling just narratively we're going to have to go back into the past, because I said earlier episode 8 ended on a cliffhanger, because it turns out that despite everything, we think that everything's in the clear. You know, Sunjae's son, he doesn't express that he has any depression or anxiety, and he's happy. You know, everything looks like everything is on the up and up for the main couple, only for the stalker to come back into the fold and potentially put Sunjae into a life-threatening situation. And I don't know if in the future it's going to be that he ends up dying anyways. And I don't know if that's going to be the overall messaging of the story, that no matter how many times Im-sol goes into the past, no matter how many times she alters it, and they almost seem like they're going to be happy in some way, shape, or form, you have to let destiny play out, and you're just going to have to let that man die, whether it's by his own means or through some other traumatic, unfortunate circumstance. Because I feel like with the way the show is presenting itself right now, that would be too dark of a scenario. Like, I feel like the show wants to gear itself towards the typical happy ending, because typically if you're doing a romantic comedy or romance, they're supposed to be happily ever after. Like, that's the little definition of the romance genre. Either there's a happily ever after, or it's not romance, right? It could be a fictional story that has romantic elements, but if the two don't end up together and there's no happily ever after, at least in the book world, under the romance category, that's not actually romance. So I feel like the show wants to have a happy ending, but the way that the storyline is set up, it could actually end up in a real tragic way, where no matter how much the female lead character wants it, you gotta let destiny play out the way destiny wants to play out, which is sad, really, really sad. And especially because she had a scene with her best friend who was pregnant, who ends up marrying her brother in the future. And she says something along the lines of, you know, even if I had the chance to go back into the past, I wouldn't change anything. I would let everything just play out exactly the way it is, because that's how it's supposed to be. And it was very ominous in tone, and you could see the female lead kind of really take that messaging to heart. So it leaves a lot of questions for me, but I am fully locked into Lovely Runner, and I'm going to continue watching the show. And I'm very curious as where they're going to take the show from here on out, and if the high school crush is going to come into play, and if they're going to delve more into why this weird psychotic man is stalking Im-sol, and it's not just an instance of a man just being scary and territorial of a girl that he just picks at random, if there's a specific reason why he's targeting Sol. So there's a lot to chew, but let me say, Byeon Woo-seok in particular, he is really impressing me in this show. He plays the yearning really well, and I actually find whenever the show goes into his POV, like, it's that much more heartbreaking. And I think the couple has really good chemistry, and I like that it's like a slow build-up. I don't need explosive chemistry between the leads right away. I just need to know that we're gonna get there, and it's just gonna look good, and it's gonna make sense once they actually do cross over to the romantic side. And let me tell you, episode 8 brought it. That kiss brought it tenfold. Damn, that was a good kiss. Damn. Anyways, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching via YouTube, let me know in the comments if you're loving the direction Lovely Runner is in right now. What did you think about episode 8 in particular? And if you're listening via Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I love you. I appreciate you so much. Until the next episode, and believe you me, the next episode's going to be something really special. Bye.